The thing about living with someone is you start noticing the small things before the big ones, like how Malik always played music while brushing his teeth, or how he walked around shirtless after the gym, his skin still glistening with sweat, acting like it was the most normal thing in the world. He was loud, easygoing, confident, the kind of guy people watched when he entered a room. And me? I was just his quiet roommate, the one who brewed coffee early and stacked dishes properly. 8 months in, I knew his moods better than I knew my own. I could tell when a text from his girlfriend had annoyed him, or when he was upset, but pretending not to be. He never talked much about his feelings, just shrugged things off with a joke or a deep breath. But there were moments, small cracks in his act, when he lingered a little too long in the kitchen with me. Moments I told myself didn't mean anything, even when my heart hoped otherwise. It was during one of those late spring storms, the kind that made the windows rattle and the lights flicker. When it happened, the power had already gone out once, and Malik came into my room holding a flashlight, shaking it like a toy. "My AC's dead. Feels like a damn sauna in there," he said, wiping sweat from his neck. Then, without asking, he pointed at my bed. "Mind if I crash here tonight?" I nodded too fast. "Yeah, sure. It's fine." He tossed a pillow to the other side and dropped onto the mattress like he belonged there. It wasn't a big bed, not small either, but enough that we'd definitely feel it if the other moved. We lay on our backs, barely speaking, the only sound being the low rumble of thunder outside and the occasional creak of the old building settling. I was wide awake. My thoughts ran louder than the storm. He was right there, inches away. I could smell his cologne still lingering from earlier, mixed with something else, something warm, alive, masculine. At one point, he sighed and turned his back to me. I mirrored him, back to back, a strange, silent closeness, the kind that tugs at something primal and terrifying inside you. Around 2 a.m., I felt it, his arm, heavy and warm, draping across my waist like it belonged there. It wasn't a full embrace, just a relaxed sprawl. Maybe he was dreaming. Maybe it was nothing. But I didn't move. I couldn't. My heart hammered in my chest. So, loudly, I thought he might wake up just from feeling it. The air between us shifted. Not sexually, not yet, but emotionally, electrically. Like we both knew we were sharing something unspoken. Like his skin against mine meant more than he would ever admit. I stared at the wall for what felt like hours. Every nerve lit up like lightning behind curtains. I wasn't brave enough to reach for his hand. I wasn't stupid enough to believe this meant he felt the same way. But still, I stayed still. Even his breathing had changed. Slower, deeper, like he was settling in, comfortable, peaceful. I hated how much I loved hearing that. I hated how I memorized the rhythm of his chest rising and falling, how I imagined tracing the lines of his arm without moving a finger. A flash of lightning lit the room for half a second. I saw the shape of his fingers, his wrist resting against me. I closed my eyes and pretended I was asleep. I didn't want him to move. I didn't want the moment to end. Because in that stillness, in that tiny bed with the storm whispering outside, I felt something I'd been starving for. Intimacy. Even if it wasn't real. Even if it was just a sleepy accident. I don't know when I drifted off. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just floated in that half-dream where reality blurs, and you let yourself believe in things that could ruin you. But what I remember most, what stayed with me longer than it should have, was that he didn't move his hand. Not once. And I didn't dare move mine either. The next morning came slowly, like the light was afraid to disturb whatever had happened in the dark. I opened my eyes to the grayness of a cloud-covered morning, and for a moment, I thought I had imagined everything. But then I felt it. Space. Empty, cool space where warmth had been just hours earlier. Malik was gone. His pillow was slightly dented. The sheet where he had slept was still creased, holding a ghost of his body. No sign of awkwardness. No sign that anything had happened. But everything had. I got up, went to the kitchen, and there he was, standing shirtless again like always, leaning against the counter, sipping from a mug that used to be mine, but had silently become his. His phone was in his other hand. He was scrolling, smiling faintly at something. He looked up and our eyes met, just for a second. "Morning," he said, like it was any other day. "Yeah, morning." That was it. No mention of the bed. No acknowledgement of the arm, the closeness, the weight of silence we'd shared. Just a normal day. The kind that felt anything but. The day passed like a blur. He went out for a few errands. I stayed in, pretending to be busy. My mind kept replaying everything. How close we had been, the way he sighed in his sleep, the feel of his breath on my shoulder. And yet nothing. That night, it rained again. Softer this time, more like a rhythm against the windows in a storm. I was lying on my bed, headphones in, pretending to read something on my laptop when I heard a knock. He didn't wait for a reply before opening the door. "Still warm in my room," he said, casually. "You cool with me crashing here again?" I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. He didn't bring a pillow this time. He slid under the blanket, like it was his, like we had done this 100 times. I faced the ceiling. He laid on his side, facing away. We didn't speak for a while. The silence had texture now, thick, aware, charged. "I ever tell you about the time I almost drowned?" he asked suddenly, his voice low, like a confession. I shook my head. "Surfing. I was 15. Wave took me out. I couldn't tell which way was up. My chest burned. I blacked out. Woke up with some guy giving me CPR. Weirdest part? I wasn't even scared, not at first. I just felt calm. I turned toward him. I couldn't see his face, just his outline in the dark. "Why'd you think of that now?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Maybe 'cause it feels the same. This calm. Here." The room was suddenly too small, too intimate. "She still doesn't get me," he said, barely above a whisper. "Kelsey?" He nodded. "I tell her stuff, and it's like she's not even listening. But you always do. You just hear me." I wanted to reach for his hand. I didn't. "She says I'm too soft," he added, "like I feel too much." "You're not," I said, more firmly than I intended. He chuckled barely. "You always say the right things." There was a pause, tense, aching. Then, slowly, he shifted closer. I felt the mattress dip. Our shoulders touched. Lightly, like an accident that stayed on purpose. I didn't move. He didn't either. We lay there like that, half connected, half restrained. His breathing slowed again. He whispered, "You're easy to talk to, softer." He didn't say my name, but the way he breathed it made me believe he would. My whole body was humming, not from fear, from wanting, from wondering what would happen if I turned my face just a little, if I leaned in. But I didn't. I couldn't. He didn't either. Still, neither of us moved away. The space between us had disappeared, and neither of us knew what to do with that. The third night didn't start with rain. It was clear, quiet, but somehow the silence felt heavier than the storm ever did. We didn't speak much that evening. Just some half-hearted conversation about a movie playing in the background. We didn't really watch it. We were both waiting for the part we wouldn't say out loud. When he entered my room again, this time he didn't ask. He just walked in, turned off the light, and got into bed like it was his place too. And maybe by now it was. We faced the same direction, toward the wall, closer than before. His arm wasn't draped over me like the first night, but our legs touched, bare skin brushing. Unintentional at first, then not. I could feel it. That tension, that need to speak, to ask, to move. But we both stayed still, like even a breath too deep might break the spell. Then he did it. Malik's hand slid under the sheet, slowly, until his fingers touched mine. Lightly at first. Testing. Pausing. Then he linked them. I froze, not from fear, but from the weight of everything that touch meant. I turned my head slightly. Not all the way, just enough to say something. But he beat me to it. "What are we doing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't reply with words. Instead, he leaned forward, his forehead pressing against my shoulder, his breath warm, hesitant. His lips grazed the top of my back, gentle, almost reverent. And then he kissed me. It wasn't wild or messy. It wasn't rushed or drunk. It was slow, soft, the kind of kiss that says I've been thinking about this too. I didn't pull away. I kissed him back. For a while, that's all there was. Mouths meeting in silence, fingers clutching tighter. Two boys tangled in a moment they both had been avoiding for far too long. It didn't go further. No clothes were shed. No lines were crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. But something sacred happened in that darkness. Something irreversible. He held me that night. And for the first time in months, I fell asleep without overthinking every heartbeat. Morning came colder. When I woke up, he was already up, bag slung over his shoulder, keys in his hand. He wasn't avoiding me, but he wasn't looking at me either. Heading to the gym, he said simply, adjusting his cap. I sat up. You leaving early? He shrugged. Got stuff to do. It stung. How normal he was trying to be. Then I heard it, his phone vibrating in his pocket. He answered with a short, "Hey," and turned slightly away from me. "Kelsey, I just needed space." Stayed in the living room, he said casually. Didn't want to wake Jaden. I felt something inside me close up like a door. The same bed, the same night, but two different versions of existed. Mine was real. His was disposable. He left without another word. The day dragged like molasses. I tried not to let it show. Tried not to reread the moment and reframe it as something it wasn't. But the silence between us after that was deafening. We were still roommates, still sharing the same space. But something was broken. Or maybe something had finally been revealed. 2 weeks later, he told me he was moving in with a friend closer to downtown. Didn't give a reason. Didn't need to. I helped him pack, because I didn't know how not to. On his last day, he stood at the doorway, hand on the frame like he was holding himself back from saying too much. He looked at me, really looked. His voice cracked just slightly when he said, "I meant it that night." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream. "Then why did you run?" Instead, I just nodded. "I know." He stared at me for a second longer, then smiled faintly. "You're going to be okay." And then he left. He took everything with him, except that moment, that kiss, that night, that soft, fleeting truth. I still think about it sometimes. The weight of his arm, the way he kissed me like I was something safe. We slept in the same bed by mistake. But what happened in that silence, I'll never forget.